Hey, thanks for joining us today. I appreciate spending time with us. I know you guys are all busy. I'd like to start by asking a question, and that is, what is an identity and how do we manage a person's identity in today's workplace? My name's Tim Orchid. I'm the Vice President of Sales here at ColorID. Joining me is David Stallsmith, the Director of Product Management. ColorID has been around for about 25 years. We have provided security products across multiple industries such as healthcare, government, higher education, industry, and even access control companies. We began by selling ID printers and ribbons. We expanded into contactless cards, then to biometrics. Now we're selling mobile credentials, essentially helping organizations secure access to their buildings and many other systems. Through this journey, we became more than just a company that helps you print an ID card. We became experts in technologies and applications that rely on these ID cards. We've evolved essentially into an identity solutions integrator. And with that, the concept of identity has also evolved. Today, your biometric data or your cell phone can serve as an extension of your identity. Your assigned credentials can be used for multiple functions, like opening doors, logging into computers, parking, time and attendance, getting something from the cafeteria, and even printing documents on the copy machine. This evolution revealed a significant gap in the marketplace, the need for a true identity management platform. Most of the companies we work with have multiple locations, running various access control systems, and have a combination of HR, access control, time and attendance, and they struggle to manage the identities across all of these effectively and efficiently. David's going to touch on all of this and show us what the future of identity and identity management will look like. During David's presentation, please ask questions. The more, the better. If you have comments, you can post a comment as well. There's a chat box in the upper right-hand corner that I'll be monitoring. I'll try to address everything during the presentation. If we miss anything, we will circle back to it at the end. So with that said, I'm going to pass the mic to David Stallsmith.
Great, Tim. Thanks a lot. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me share a screen and the opening slide that should have been playing already. There we go. All right. So, opening screen. Next, the screen that covers what Tim talked about and brings us to just a brief timeline of Color ID and what we've done. Just we're not going to go through this whole thing word for word. Just pick out a couple important words that are shown here: identity, contactless, migration, identity roadmap, mobile ID. These are all the realm of Color ID's business for the last 25 years, as Tim said. We opened our doors and have focused on identity since day one. So because of that, let's just let's define identity right here at the top. And these are my definitions, but I think they'll line up pretty well with what Google is doing. What is identity? Well, for what we're talking about today, it's how a system recognizes users. If it doesn't recognize you, you won't get what you need. If it does, you will. Why does it matter? Well, because systems cannot function unless they know who they are serving. So the identity, the credentials presented, these are forming the critical identity infrastructure, a cool phrase coined by our executive vice president, Danny Smith, and it contains three components. He nailed this. He got it really right. There are three essential components to this. The credentials themselves, for most people, that's cards, ID cards, badges. Mobile credentials are making an appearance at some locations. Then the second component, readers or biometric and other sensors. So something that's going to read the card, recognize you, know something's in the area. Those two are usually hardware components. Then we get to the software piece. You got to put the people in the system. You got to know who they are. You have to be able to identify them, and you have to make things happen. Doors open, turnstiles revolve, food spits out of a vending machine. So all of these things comprise the critical identity infrastructure, very important to identity. Jump a little bit to the side on the next question, but very important for what we're talking about today. Can you take identity management out of an access control or HR system? And in this group, the answer is absolutely. And it's very important because so many corporations, businesses of all kinds, use the access control system to make badges. Now, some of you may be using standalone badge production systems, but either way, identity management can be moved out of those systems into its own platform. Now, why would you do that? Well, that's the point of today's webinar, to get to tomorrow's modern enterprise today. This slide kind of goes two ways at the same time. It says there's been minimal evolution in identity and credential management over the last 25 years, and that is true. People pretty much issue badges the way they did 25 years ago. Badges are similar, readers on the doors, not much has changed, but recent technological advancements, cloud solutions, mobile credentials, AI, we don't know what's going to happen because of AI yet in our industry, but we are certainly very familiar with increased security risks, and they are making everyone assess how do we balance our legacy systems with these demands of modernity. Well, we identified 5 challenges. We're going to go through these one at a time. Legacy platforms and flexibility, mixed credentials, mobile IDs, systems and locations, and then number 5, other, because there's always another. Uh, we know when things get older, they become inflexible. And this is the same thing with systems. As software gets older, technology moves on, it gets harder to do what you used to do because you have to do more and you don't have necessarily newer tools to do that with. Also, vendors define limitations. No, this will only do certain things and we're not going to update it or upgrade it beyond that. Uh, in the world of credential management, uh, important platforms that you should be looking to support if you're not already connected to those through your identity management. You may be using your physical access control system, your PACS, to create the badges. Is it connected to, say, your cafeteria system or print management? Time and attendance is a big one. Are your badges able to automatically be used on time clocks? Parking, pretty good chance your badges don't get you in and out of your parking lot. If you have a rec center, can it be locked down? Visitor management, lockers themselves. Can your credentials be used to access lockers? These are things to look forward to, but not many institutions cover most of those right now. In the land of credentials itself, they are often mixed. On the left, there's a paper card. Visitors often get those, or a paper label, and they stick it on their shirt and it falls off. We have the ID badge. Everybody in North America that gets paid almost carries an ID badge. Mobile credentials are coming both for logging into access control systems, payments, all kinds of things, but there are different kinds of mobile credentials. Each one of these credentials has to have its own readers, and often those readers sit in different locations. And so not only is there a wall between the locations and the business units themselves, but often the credentials are different and the readers, all creating to a siloed environment where it's very difficult to communicate across all these different systems. For those of you who have looked at or have moved to mobile IDs, managing mobile IDs can be quite a challenge. If you have decided to try it and you're using one of the manufacturers, for example, this list here on the screen, if you're using their mobile credentials and readers and you're issuing them using the manufacturer's portal, you know this is a fairly labor-intensive process. Not too big a deal for 100 in a proof of concept, but by the time you get up to 200 or certainly 500 users, somebody's spending quite a bit of time creating and retrieving mobile credentials. How do you do that in an automatic way at scale? Number four, if you recall from our list, too many systems and too many locations for the credentials you have. We hear this a lot these days with the mergers and acquisitions that have occurred in the last 15 years. Many access control systems under one corporate umbrella now. You go from one plant to a warehouse or distribution center, it's a different access control system. Not only might your credential not work, but the system behind it may not recognize the numbers because the data is not being shared. So you have the credential technologies themselves, and then we also have the back end systems that are not necessarily connected. At the same time, we need to be aware of security. Uh, a lot of enterprises, for example, have settled on procs, low frequency procs, as a credential of choice because it does work everywhere. But the trade off for that is there's essentially zero security in a prox card. So things to keep in mind. And then we get to the other category. Legacy solutions, yes, they can still be expensive, especially if you're trying to make changes, do upgrades, and maintain them. A lot of times they're expensive just because of the man hours required to keep the systems functioning. Oh, we email our ID numbers to the access control system from HR. Awesome. Somebody has to sit there, open emails, and carefully key in ID numbers to a system. Other things that happen in this challenge category, systems are on-prem. Not necessarily bad in itself, but a lot of the legacy on-prem systems are not known for their ability to connect to other and newer systems and solutions to be able to share credential data. Slower support response times, a lot of big companies are famous for that. And you want to get some integrations done. Okay, great. We paid them for an integration. They did a great job. It works. Oops, update, integration broke. What are we going to do about that? I don't know. Maybe we'll catch it in the next update. So there's a lot going on here with the legacy systems, trying to drag them into the 21st century. Everybody's pretty familiar with this. And the vendors, meanwhile, often are throwing roadblocks in the way just to slow you down and keep you paying them for their service. So all of that, those are the challenges. Let's move on. Let's the sun is going to come out today. Um, we do, however, we believe we're at a major inflection point with regard to identity and credentials. With all the changes, the challenges, we've had a great run, 20, 30 years, credentials, access control systems, a lot of systems that everybody has been using are turning over, and we're hearing names of new tech companies that were startups just a few years ago, and now they're eating the world, as it were, as all kinds of institutions in a variety of markets are falling all over themselves to rapidly replace legacy platforms with these new systems. Well, they all need credentials. And so as you are looking at new systems to implement, keep your eyes open and find ways to be able to use credentials through solutions that support open platforms. Look, if you're moving towards mobile, it doesn't just necessarily have to be the Apple Wallet way. Bluetooth offers a very nice solution, and there's an app-based NFC that several manufacturers are supporting. So there are a very good number of options there. Scalable credential lifecycle tools. This is important because you need to be able to manage your credentials both within a small subset and in a large enterprise. So whether your business is small and you only need to manage 200 or 300 credentials, you need to do it well and flexibly and make sure everything is connected and working. In a large organization, you may have a distribution center of 300 credentials. In your whole enterprise, you need to be able to manage both the small and the large. So scalability is very important. We drew up a map of the current state. You know, some of the systems we've talked about here, data usually comes from the human resource information. Badges often get made in the physical access control system. Sometimes, not always, is that an automated connection. Sometimes it's a CSV file that's being carried by a script. And sometimes, like I said, ID numbers are being emailed. Time and attendance may or may not be automatically connected to the credential. Parking usually is not. Property management, this is a kind of a new area now that electronic locks and access control is being put on doors that often were secured with brass keys. They are not always well connected so that the credentials can be used across these various systems. Asset tracking, this is not real new, but it's important. You know, not only deliveries, which is growing exponentially, but also assets within an organization. How do you track them, and how can those be tied to credentials? And visitor manager, of course, now temporary credentials. How are all of these things managed in a way that both can be scaled and reported on at the end of the day? Um, so cue the angel choir. ColorID imagines a future state where all of your systems are beautifully interlocked like a jigsaw puzzle in varying colors. This is not to so much show that each of these various systems are connected to each other, but where the modern enterprise cloud sits, really that's our symbol for an identity management platform that we call Card Exchange. And it can connect to all of these different systems so that as a user moves from one to another, from the parking garage to their desktop to use single sign-on to log in, to the cafeteria, they punch themselves in and out on the time clock, all of these things using one or several credentials, it all feels like to the user a seamless excursion through their day. So let's go directly to credential ID management. There is a life cycle for credentials. And you think about, well, no, we issue a card. We use our access control system. It spits out a card. We hand it to them. We record the number. We key it into our access system, and then they go open doors. Well, yeah, that's that's the beginning of the life cycle, right? Actually, it begins before that. The person becomes a member of your enterprise, and then the credential is given to them to give them access and permissions within the enterprise, which hopefully do more than just open doors. Opening doors is very important, nothing wrong with that, but there's so much more that a credential can do. The life cycle is how that credential is managed from creation to use, and then it gets lost, and then it gets replaced, and or it needs to be updated because somebody updated the credential technology, and then at some point it will be retired. Somebody leaves. That is the life cycle, kind of like people, the credentials that they carry. If there are some self-service features provided by the platform that is managing the credentials, all the better. If they lose or if a credential is stolen, they can report it. If they can upload a photo, if they can request a new credential, there are a number of different things. Obviously, you would want people to be able to automatically and easily communicate with people who issue credentials. As you are talking through all these things in your organization, and invariably many of you are at some level. You're looking at new access control systems. You've hung about as many cameras as you can. You're considering whether you want to put in some new video processing solutions. And in the meantime, you're looking at your cards and you're going, are these secure? Or we're looking at doors. Do those need to have readers or locks also that can be controlled by an electronic system? In the process, you need to keep some things in mind. Security, of course, but if you're moving to contactless smart cards, mobile credentials, uh, the encryption keys are very important to the security because they keep the cards from being able to be easily replicated. But they also make it difficult to move your cards between various vendors and to give you the ability to load other applications on your cards or on your mobile devices. So getting control of your encryption keys, part of that critical identity infrastructure, is very important, because if you lose that control, you lose the opportunity for collaboration and innovation in that area. So as you're having these discussions, get the right people involved. You need the executives because they make decisions and they can release funds, but they often know almost nothing about the way cards, credentials, mobile credentials work. They use Apple Pay at Whole Foods, and they know it works. That's what they know, right? Um, Education is crucial. And also, even the people who use systems may not understand the credential technologies and the nuances there. As you're trying to move forward, bring on more secure solutions and yet maintain control of these solutions. So, educating people, bringing people together in collaboration, voila, innovation. It just happens. You get to tear down fences and build bridges. So, yeah, we got some bumper stickers in here. So, while we're at it, ColorID is building a comprehensive portfolio of connected solutions that will actually be able to function with your credentials. As you're looking around coming attractions, for some of you, you may already have your time and attendance system locked to your credential, and that's working. Great. So that's not a coming attraction for you. For others, yeah, they're hoping they can get there someday. Transportation, parking, like I said, not often connected. Transit, probably not, but maybe it could be. If you're in a metropolitan area, transit and being able to use your card, your badge on the transit system, it is possible. We have several customers that we've helped with that migration. Having a central management for credentials is very important to being able to both deliver and maintain those kinds of integrations. Smart building solutions, again, credentials are important both for visitors, deliveries, building automation, all kinds of things there. Elevators, places you may or may not be able to use your card. Well, if you have a good credential management system, then you increase your possibilities for using those credentials in a wider range of solutions. Um, Geolocation, wayfinding can be important. If you're not using it now, maybe you will be someday. And of course, data collection and analytics, very important for client compliance and for improving processes. So as you're having these conversations within your organization, don't be afraid to ask what else is going on besides just opening doors and logging into workstations with our credentials. Find out, walk around, ask questions. You might be surprised to find how people are using various applications of your credential. Now, you know what credentials you have, you know how they work. The tech people are at it. They're inventing new stuff all the time. If you haven't heard of ultra wideband, it looks like it might actually move into our lives in the near future. It's already on a lot of the newer phones. It senses, as you approach a reader, it senses velocity, a vector. It knows what angle you're approaching from. It can do things more automatically than having to actually present a device to a reader like we do with NFC. Biometrics, everybody's familiar with that now. Fingerprints and faces, open phones, and a few places are actually using these for access control and other uses. We will continue to see biometrics grow. I'm nearly certain of that. If you're involved in the mobile credentials, Bluetooth, wallet uses near field communication. Wallet is it's within the realm of the phone providers, so there are some limitations around how those can be applied in any circumstance. However, if you do go in the wallet direction, often things tend to work very well. Also, there's some new credential types being studied. Peacock, public key infrastructure for mobile credentials. Aliro, another consortia that is looking at these things. But with all these changes, and like we said, the inflection point that we are sitting in the middle of, we believe businesses have a rare opportunity to separate their identity management from other systems. The way you've been doing it as part of an embedded solution has worked well enough, but if you can pull that out, put it in a good credential management solution, we believe it will give you a tremendous advantage both in onboarding new applications, being able to consider new solutions, all to be tied together with integrations and automations to make everybody's life a lot better. And because we're at an inflection point, the window only stays open for so long, and this may not happen again for years. At some point, Everybody will say, okay, we've upgraded our credentials, we've upgraded this system, we've replaced that system. Okay, we're done for 20 years. So wherever you get by that time, the window closes, that's where you will be for a while.
Hey,
Uh,
David,
la- yeah, yeah, Tim.
we do have a good question about mobile credentials in general. I think
Yeah,
that that was a good time maybe to insert
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so, we have some businesses on this webinar today that have multiple locations. This one in particular, 188 locations across 34 countries, right?
Cool. Yeah.
So most of those office buildings are shared spaces, multi-tenant facilities. The question is it feasible to use a mobile credential? Being it sounds very challenging with iPhone, as there'd be a lot of approval applications that would be needed to load, and also talk about the requisition of an NFC wallet. It seems like there's a challenge to get the landlords also to play along, right? So, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, and this is a long conversation. We only have a few more minutes here in our 30-minute allotment. So, um, the answer is there are ways to address these questions that are very good and very real questions. Absolutely. Um, there, just in the way that the question was asked, I can tell the person has some experience. There are several threads there that need to be untangled in a conversation, and we'd be happy to have that with you. We work closely with Apple, Google, and are very familiar with the Bluetooth credentials that a lot of the manufacturers. So we've already been through quite a bit of this in a lot of different arenas, and I think we could probably through questions, conversations, give you some tools and thoughts to go approach those landlords and find ways to make it work.
And I think this is important for everybody else in the line to understand that there's really two parts to that question, right? The part is how do we get the landlord to play nice with us, or uh, to embrace the same concept. And then there's the question about mobile credentials and what is needed to get it into your wallet or to play with Apple, for lack of a better term. Um, and so I know this person who asked this question, and we definitely need to continue that conversation for sure. But for everybody else, you're going to experience 99.5%. You're going to experience this as well, and no two applications are the same, and that's why we need to get on the phone and discuss it.
Yeah, that's really good. That's exactly right, Tim. Way to break that down very nicely. Um, it, it's things can be done, and we have some experience with that, and we'd be happy to walk this through with whoever would like to. Um, So jumping back into the last slide here, what about your access control and your HR systems? Um, well, if you go to a separate identity management platform, PACS and HR continue to do what they do. They open doors, they manage people, but if you've pulled the credential management and creation out of them, well, then they're not responsible for that anymore. You're using another system for that. And those systems, access control and human resources, then they become consumers of identity data rather than actually creating and managing the credentials. So when you create a new credential, you send those numbers and information to those systems, to HR and PACS, and they get the information and they can work with it. But now you're using what I would say is a much more capable and powerful program for creating and managing credentials than what the modules within those other systems often uh, include. So with that, I will wrap it up and hand it off to Tim for slide last.
And just to go back on that last slide, it
Oh,
also allows the other systems to do what they're designed to do.
yeah,
For instance, access control, manage rights and doors, right?
yeah,
HR, manage payments and other things as well. So it
yeah,
just it makes sense. So going to the back to the last slide there, Dave.
yep,
So what's your next steps? Connect with us. What we're good at is consulting. We don't see ourselves as we are a sales company, obviously, but we're more of a consultant approach, and we wanted what's best for you. That way we can make a plan, partner together, and deploy a application that makes sense for everybody, right? Um, I do have another question that was emailed to me before the webinar. And if you can stick along, I know we're in negative time here. Some other people might be interested in this as well. I have a federal government customer that their biggest problem is an influx of customers, for lack of a better term, coming in to get badges. So you queue up a big line. They haven't taken any pictures, right? They haven't collected all the names, data, or documentation. So they went out and looked at a software application that collects the photos. Well, that's great. It collected the photos, but then it didn't collect any other data, right? So it kind of like, okay, well then we need to have this other thing. So all of a sudden the costs start to escalate, right? And it felt very super glued and duct tape. So can you talk on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Photo collection is very time consuming and painful for sure, just in itself. So if you're only able to add a photo collection service to your badge production, you will definitely improve the lives of everybody involved. So not taking anything away from that. But to Tim's point, if that's the only thing you upgrade, and then from there you still are like typing in all the personal data that they've handwritten on a piece of paper and handed to you, and then you upload the photo that they self-service uploaded themselves, you're still working with a couple of systems, that aren't really operating the same century. Um, the platform we're talking about, Card Exchange Cloud, both collects photos, self-service. People can upload their own. It can also take photos. So got that covered. You won't have to stand in line while photos are being taken. But it also, because it has a database and it is an application, it can pull data from any source. So anywhere data exists, you want to get that into the identity management system automatically without having to hand key data and 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 that kind of thing. Is that what you're looking for, Tim, there in that question?
Well, yeah, the customer, right? Like I was just,
Yeah.
he asked the question, so I was just regurgitating it over to you.
Right.
Um,
And we've seen this. We've been through this a number of times. People will buy a solution like a photo thing, and that's great. It's very helpful. But but if you're not actually managing the credentials themselves and the identities, you still will end up either with, like Tim said, pieces of solutions kind of duct taped together, or you'll end up doing things manually to kind of make, because you become the integrator as you do the daily task of carrying data from one system to another manually. Uh, Card Exchange Cloud does a lot of these things automatically. And because it manages the life cycle, that's the difference. When you only have badge software, it just prints a card. It does one part of the life cycle. Card Exchange Cloud manages the whole life cycle.
Very good. So if you could go to the last slide there, just so people have some contact information. This was a lot, and we appreciate everybody listening. What we'd like you to do, if you have questions or interested in learning more, is to contact us. Obviously, there's our 800 number. Many of you know your sales rep here at ColorID. Reach out to them, set up a time. We can establish a demo or just basically a quick phone call to figure out what's best for you. We appreciate your time once again, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks a lot. Bye.